What's up, everyone? Happy Monday. Sean, how did you make it first? Was that on accident? That couldn't have been on purpose. What's up, Pete? How you doing? John, how's it going? What's up, Sammy? How's everybody's week? Kyle, how's it doing, buddy? I was just in Michigan. I look, I don't care about football or baseball or basketball or any of that stuff, but I am from Ohio. And I do like to talk a little bit of shit. So I do talk about that Michigan-Ohio rivalry. But man, every time I go up there, I want to talk about a little less. Michigan guys kind of turned the heat up on me this weekend when I was up there, or I guess last week, not the weekend per se, but now I kind of don't want to talk no shit. The hell, man. I'm going to have to find somebody else, another state to pick on. West Virginia's probably, Ohio always talk shit about West Virginia too, growing up. I don't think I think maybe that's where I have to focus my attentions. What's up, Doc? How you doing, brother? School time. Well, John. Hopefully I haven't been too Monday for you, man. I kind of had Monday. Like I'm trying to do, you know what I mean? I'm trying to be on this path to do better, but sometimes old habits creep in, man. I had somebody who got out of line with their mouth, and I kind of reciprocated. I got to learn to maybe be a little bit better about that. Thanks, Rory. I know, man. I can't believe it. I don't know what happened. It just happened to boot. Definitely working my ass off for it. There's no doubt about that, but it just happened. What's up, John? How you doing, buddy? That's good. I'm glad yours is starting off good. What's up, Ryan? Fort Worth. This dude right here. If he sends you a friend request, just block this dude. That's all I know. What's up, buddy? E's and B's in the house. Tim, another faithful. Appreciate you tuning in, buddy. Got a lot of good info this week. This week, tonight. Oh, yeah. A lot of good info. These guys are smart, man. So before I bring them on, just real quick, I have like a handful of questions I'm going to ask them. I'm going to try and get this try and tone down the chaos a little bit. I know you guys are going to have specific questions, but I think I put together a pretty good list of some basic questions that'll cover a lot of different stuff for everybody. And then that way, hopefully, we can get those basic questions answered for you guys. And that creates a little less confusion in the comments section because, sometimes we get behind. And I just want to make sure everybody gets all the information that they're looking for out of these things. So I'm trying to progress. I'm trying to, as dumb hillbilly as I am, I'm trying to get a little bit smarter so I can be a better show host for you guys. I will be back in a couple weeks. Don't tell anybody though. Shh. For another couple days. Well, that's one thing we can't talk about is any Mustang stuff. We're only talking about Chevys. No Ford questions tonight. We got what's up, brother? Jay's helping out. He's got me doing these push-ups. Let's see, wrong arm. Look at this. I'm starting to get a little something there, Jay. A little something. It used to be all flabby. Look at that. Little pebble. Oh, a little. I mean, it ain't much, but considering, 5 months ago I was a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, that's some hot ass shit right there. Psst. So we've got, you know, I got like 15, 20 more pounds that I want to lose. And I'm going to seriously start bulking up. But right now, I'm making that transition. And Jay's helping out. He got me on this push-up challenge. So that's helping out. What's up, Ben? How you doing, buddy? Abraham, how's it going, Mexico? You must have been hanging out with Jasper and those guys. They know how to party. I keep telling you guys, just go to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're on Facebook, and make sure you just go through. I have all these live feeds already set up, scheduled for till the beginning of April. So you can go and hit a reminder for all of them. YouTube reminders actually work. The video quality is always better. And whatever reason Facebook's hating on me with some of you guys and gals right now, I don't understand it. But I understand I am getting a lot of complaints that you can't view it on Facebook. It's a Facebook thing, not a me thing. And go to YouTube. F this format. I saw that. Was that you posted a picture of that? Yep. See, there you go. You're learning. Get the Camaros. Now you guys, all of you got to get mullets though. Look, we already got the Chevy versus Ford conversation fired up, so that's going to make it interesting. But yeah, I agree. Promoters, half off entry fees for all non Mustangs. So let's. Yeah. So anyways, hey man, we got enough of you in here now. So like I said, I'm going to bring these guys in, and if you're, I mean, I know most of you guys and gals already know who they are. Jason and Brad from Tin Soldiers and their whole crew are awesome people. And just a little backstory on my end is, and knew about them, had heard about them. Look at all this awesome stuff they have too, by the way. But I hadn't heard about them and knew about them a little bit, but it was 2020 during COVID, and you had to go over in the cover of night and do these top secret things at tracks because of the shutdown. And that was the first time I actually had like a face-to-face with Jason, per se. And great guy. But for me, I was in we'd just been battling a bunch of medical stuff with my youngest for a couple years, and just getting a low point sometimes when stuff like that happens. And sometimes you just forget about stuff, man, and you kind of forget about anything good. And Jason got up like he always does and says the prayer, and just spoke about happiness and love and all the good things that he always talks about. And was just that day, man, was a really, in the last 20 or 30 years, it's probably in my top 10 favorite memories. Like my buddy Joe Williams says, man, reminded me recently, you never know who's watching, and you never know what they're going to take away from what you're doing. And, Jason and those guys are always just such a positive force in the industry, man, that they're always so inspirational to me. and I love every opportunity I get to hang out with these guys and support these guys. And so to me, this is like it's always a huge honor, and it's a way for me to help repay the kindness that they didn't even know, because I was some faceless jackass in the crowd, listening to Jason's words, and they brought a lot of hope back into my life in a time when I needed it. And so I appreciate these guys, man. And so I hope you guys do too, man. And as you get to know them tonight, and a lot of great information here. I know they'll share with us. And enough of my babbling. Let's bring them on. What's up, guys?
What's up, buddy?
What's up?
How you guys been?
With my water bottle, I'm ruining Ricky's deal here.
Oh yeah. First and foremost, we got to give a shout out to Ricky. He's been working. So this is Ricky's office, media room. He's been working on this for like 3 days, and he's got our podcast.
Yeah, we're way
stage set up.
It's way better than me sitting in my.
Oh yeah, Ricky did a great job.
Yeah, Ricky killed it. So none of this is Jason or I.
Yeah,
like at all. So
yeah, we won some of the props, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So I know you guys are going to get bombarded with questions, but like I told you earlier, I think it'd be easier if I just ask you some good basic questions that'll probably help a lot of people out, and then we can kind of move on to the specific questions. But before we do, why don't you guys just introduce yourselves to each other and tell everybody who might not be as familiar as others about Tin Soldiers and what you guys do.
Good.
This is my domestic partner. We've been domestic partners for about 7 years. But Tin Soldier really just started as two guys with a dream to build race cars. And it really evolved from that. Now we have an incredible team that continually makes us look good. We could not do this without all the boys that we passionately call the Soldier Boys. So, and if you ever wonder where the name Tin Soldier comes from, that is my dad. So that big jacket, Ricky's got some cool memorabilia from him sitting in here, but his car was called the Tin Soldier. So we stole his name. Unfortunately for him, he didn't copyright it, so that was up for grabs. But that's basically the gist of it. We've transferred over the last few years from doing really full builds and building cars to having a whole line of production parts, stuff that we use on cars that we've built in the past, stuff that we use personally. So that's kind of, I hate the word claim to fame, but our deal is we absolutely are drag racers through and through. So we make parts that we know work, and we test them a lot, which testing happens to be really fun because we get to go race. But and in the business wise, Brad's more, we call him the big brain Brad, but that is his role within the company. He's our lead designer. He's our lead engineer. He dropped out of engineering school, so he's got, he's got some background there.
It's true.
Yeah, we're both. So, but that's been his role. I've always been the welder, the guy that sticks the stuff together. And then as we've kind of transitioned, I do more of the sales role. I'm in the office, typically talking on the phone, stuff like that. So, yeah. You got anything to add to that?
Well, you're supposed to introduce yourself, and you didn't even say your name.
Oh, my name is Jason. That is Brad.
I'm Brad. Yeah. But yeah, when we started, it was just our whole business plan, I guess you could say, was I built it and Jason welded it. I guess I'm a decent fabricator and Jason's a phenomenal welder. So we figured if we put the two together, we could have some top of the line work. And that was basically our business model when we started out. Obviously, now neither of us work in the shop as much as we would like, but now more Jason's answering the phone and dealing with sales calls, and then managing the shop along with trying to fit in time to design new parts and stuff like that. So
when are we moving in the new shop? We're actually sitting in a portion of the new shop right now.
Yep.
So this is Ricky's new office, media room. And we're actually getting to look out kind of a window into what will be over the next few months. So it's kind of a light transition into this space, just because it is the middle of race car building season. So we are constantly bombarded with calls, building parts. Just this is the busiest season. So over the next few weeks, we're going to start moving some stuff. Within the next few weeks, Ricky and I will work out of this space once we get our parts shelves up, stuff like that. And we have new equipment that's getting dropped off this month, which is awesome. So I'll let you get excited about the new equipment. So
they were asking about Motivational Monday.
Oh, we did not have time for Motivational Monday today because Ricky was working on this. So you will have one next week. Ricky will make sure of it. So also, I know we always say to thank Ricky, but that's why you get a Motivational Monday as often as you do. Ricky really pushes me to make sure that we do it, So because of him, we've seen so many awesome things. So yeah, just in the comments, just thank him, because he puts his heart and soul into this. I mean, this is a temporary setup for tonight. And I mean, we have multiple cameras. We have big spotlights in here. I wish you could see it. So it's awesome. But what? Anything?
I think you talked enough for the both of us.
Yeah, that's normally true. I'm going to try to stop talking.
So I think that gives everybody pretty good background. And I think, like I said, let's get into a couple of these basic questions, and then we can move on to some more specific questions from the viewers.
Fire away.
So what is your favorite type of racing suspension setup?
It's a torque arm, I guarantee it.
Well, the ladder bars and then are bad, but the uniladders might be worse. I don't know. I'm not really that biased. I mean, obviously the 4-link rules the world of drag racing, but there's so many different styles of 4-link that all have their own place, from a traditional 4-link to a Mustang 4-link. They're both really good. I guess it just depends on what type of racing you're doing. If you got a big tire pro mod, you want a traditional 4-link. If you're trying to build a low buck car, or if you're no prep racing or even radial racing, the Mustangs are pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, I think, well, I'm more on the phone every day, so I talk to a lot of people. And it really doesn't matter as much what the suspension type is. It matters the work that you put into it. It matters how well you understand what you're doing. And if you don't understand it, who is helping you? The Mustang, obviously, for what it is, the price point, what you can do with it with an 8.8 and factory torque boxes, there's for the money, you're never going to beat it.
I mean, that's why there's so many Mustangs out there. I mean, Ford didn't know it, but they had a small lightweight car that fit a V8 really well, that had a strut front end and a 4-link in the back with a decently strong rear end. I mean, they basically built a race car from factory. So there's really not any other car that it has as good suspension right out of the box as a Mustang. So, I understand why, neither of us are Ford guys, but, we own several Mustangs just because they're so good. They're so easy to make into a race car.
Yeah. And for what most people are going to, if you're talking in generalness, you know, you're going to have a Mustang that has a turbo LS in it or some sort of turbo small block or a small block or big block, you know, nitrous car. That's kind of the realm of horsepower that's close to the same. It's just unbeatable, man. Like for the money, they're awesome. And like, I know like there's a ton of people that make really awesome torque boxes and all these different suspension components for them. But man, a 8.8 with just a bracket kit, whether it's ours or somebody else's, and a set of welded up torque boxes, you can win it. You can do a lot. Like,
oh yeah. I mean, we've personally been 104 60 foot and 440s in the 8th with stock torque boxes and an 8.8. It's like, it's crazy how fast you can go on stock stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Tony's got a pretty fast Mustang. It works okay.
Yeah. But, and I think like, you know, and this is just as generally speaking, like we hate when you call and you try and you're ordering parts with us or if we're kind of consulting on your build a little bit, like don't waste your money. Like what we see more than anything is people spend their money in all the wrong places, you know? So, you know, our favorite type of suspension is the one that you can afford to do, right?
Yeah.
Like that's and there's a suspension budget for everybody.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah. I mean, we get people that call every day that are like, I want to cut my stock suspension out of my Mustang and put a 4-link in it. And, you know, I'm instantly like, why? Like, you already have a 4-link.
Yeah. It's a great option.
It's a great option. Like, you know, most people do not need anything more than a stock suspension Mustang, you know, so, but, you know, yeah, if you got a torque arm or leaf springs or, you know, some oddball, you know, 50s or 60s GM suspension or something really weird. Yeah. You know, I can understand why you want to 4-link it, but, you know, something that's already 4-link from factory, like a Mustang, a G body, all that stuff, you know, they're really good from the factory.
And like even on Charlie Brown, like obviously if you don't know our race car that we race, it's a 4-door G body, but it has our small tire 4-link system in it. And we contemplated putting the stock suspension back in it. Yeah. But when we got it, all that was already cut out. So it just made more sense to, you know, go our short arm upper 4-link in it, you know, which is kind of a traditional style deal. Yeah. But even us that make 4-link parts, we thought about putting the stock suspension back in it. So
yeah, absolutely. If it would have still had stock torque boxes in it and everything, I would have hung a rear end in it and gone racing. But it's just the fact that when we got the car, it was already cut up, that it was just easier. So
the cool thing about factory suspension too is since it's triangulated, you don't have to have a wishbone, which is one less thing, you know, that you have to mess with.
And honestly, it makes them easy to work on. A lot of the times the wishbone is just in your way, you know, whether you're trying to take the third member out or get to the drive shaft or whatever. And it's like, it's one more thing in your way. Whereas a triangulated 4-link is, you know, the triangulated upper links center the rear end. So it's just an easier, simpler setup.
And to answer the question that's always on the internet,
a
Mustang does not need a wishbone. So if you take the triangulation out of the lowers, the uppers are still triangulated and you do not need them. So with a stock suspension Mustang with our torque boxes in it, we've continually been one flat. So, and there's no wishbone in that car. So.
Yeah. And 170 in the 8th.
Yeah.
100 mid high 170s in the 8th.
Yeah.
No wishbone. Car drives great.
Fastest conventional headed nitrous big block and X.
Yeah.
So, like in a generic sense, what basic components do you think make a great drag racing suspension, front and back? If you were going to put a package together for any vehicle on the planet except for a Mustang,
yeah,
because we don't like Fords here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, you can't beat a strut front end and then a 4-link in the rear. I mean, that's why all your tube chassis cars have a strut front end and a 4-link in the rear. You know, obviously that's the best, but I mean, you can still, you know, like our G body still has a stock front suspension with double A arms. You can make it work. It's just more difficult to get it to work. You know, the strut is super easy to get a lot of travel out of, and the bump steer stays really good. You know, the double A arm cars are really hard to get the bump steer good when, especially on the no prep stuff, when you start adding a lot of travel. Like our personal car, we only run like 4.5 inches of front end travel because, and it's not that I don't want to run more front end travel. I would if I could, but the bump steer gets so out of whack, you know, past 4.5 inches of extended, that it's not worth it to me, that I can make the car work with that amount of travel, but it's going to drive so much better, you know, with the bump steer correct. So, you know, Jason's going to be able to just shoot it right down through there, and it's going to drive good. And it's going to go A to B every time, as opposed to having to fight it down through there, you know? So I'll take a car that drives good and then figure out how to make it work. I think that's one of the things I see the most in no prep is everybody, well, drag racing period, is you see so much monkey see, monkey do that, you know, everybody thinks you automatically need 16 inches of front end travel to make the car work. I'm not saying it definitely helps with traction, the higher you can get the front end in the air, but the part that most people miss out on is that how screwed up is your steering when the front end's dropped out that far. Like, is your toe now so out of whack that the car drives so bad that, you know, you can't get it down through there half the time, you know, and you're fighting it, then it's not worth it. So, you know, we've personally been 116 60-foot, like probably 5 or 6 times this year with only 4.5 inches of front end travel. So on no prep.
So in like a generic sense, if someone's standing outside watching a vehicle make a pass, what are some of the things they should look for the vehicle doing to help tune their buddy's suspension?
I mean, honestly,
I know, like a vague. I know that could we could
yeah.
talk about
Tell
that
them where
first.
to, like
I mean, honestly, obviously there's no replacement for data, you know. So if you don't have a data logger, you're handicapped compared to everybody else. You know, data is key. But you know, honestly, you can literally tune a race car suspension just about with an iPhone. You know, if you turn your iPhone on slow-mo, get down right by the back tire and take a slow-mo video of that thing, and then watch it frame by frame and watch what is the suspension doing, what is the tire doing. You know, that is like one of the most critical pieces that you don't have to have shock sensors on all 4 corners to be able to tune the suspension. You can literally do it with a slow-mo video on an iPhone.
Make sure you're kind of standing on the side of the car. That's what most people miss, honestly, is like they'll send us, like they may have our product or they may not. They'll send us a video of their car like, hey, what's wrong with this thing? How can you help me? And they're standing from the very back of it and you can't see anything. So like what, you know, he has a preferred way that he, you know, where he likes to film the car every time. And, you know, that,
I like to be right by the back tire, but far enough back from the car to where I can see the front suspension and the rear suspension all in the frame, you know. But obviously you're looking at the back tire the most, but you also want to see, you know, how fast did the front end come up? How fast, what did the rear suspension do? What did the tire do? You know, and then you're going to go back to the pit and make adjustments accordingly. And then also you're going to be able to go, if you have data, you know, go look at the data and be like, okay, well, 0.4 into the run, it made a bunch of wheel speed, it spun, whatever. Well, you should probably start by going into 0.4 and removing some horsepower. I don't know. I tune very conservatively. So, you know, I'm a firm believer in you got to crawl before you walk. So I'll, you know, start with the car very slow. I just want to make sure it goes A to B. And then you just start, progressively putting in small amounts of power. Say you went a 130 60 foot. Well, it went A to B. The next pass, you're not trying to go 116. You want to try to go 128 or 127, and then 124, and then 122. You got to creep up on it until you find the limits of the power of what the track will take. And then, also trying to make the chassis happy along the way. People automatically think that because it didn't go down the racetrack, there was something wrong with the chassis or the suspension, but 9 times out of 10, it was just that you overpowered it. It's so, power management is as or more important, than the chassis and suspension setup.
Yeah. Most of the time when someone comes into, because we set up cars, we're taking a break from that until we get moved into this space, which will probably be around April is when we'll take chassis setups again. But most of the time when Brad sets up a chassis, by the end of the day, he's in their laptop also. So like because they're experiencing some problem that they automatically blame on the suspension and want him to fix it. Well, then after that's kind of lined out, he's like, hey, let me look at your laptop. And then the other thing that I've noticed just outside looking in when he's working on these things is most of the time, I would say 90% of the cars, he finds a problem with the front end. So they bring it there because they want the back of the car set up. But then he's very meticulous and checks everything for them. Even if they ask him not to, he still checks the front end. And I haven't seen a car yet that you haven't made some sort of adjustment or recommendation on the front. Because to his point, like there's a reason why I drive and he tunes. Because I try to give him feedback for what's happening, and he does a really good job of giving me a drivable race car. So if I don't have a drivable race car that is very sporadic, you can't get it down the racetrack. So if you've reached your limit of what you understand, or your buddies understand, you don't have to bring it to us, but pay somebody. You know what I mean? Like you spend all this money on parts, but you don't spend money on information, that's probably one of the biggest downfalls of racers is they want to understand it themselves. Well, if you bring a car to us to set it up, he doesn't just set it up and leave you hanging. Like he gives you a printout of where he set it up, all the available holes that you have. And then, hey, if it's doing this, do that. You know what I mean? Like he gives you knowledge to be able to fix it. But most people don't understand it well enough to make adjustments, right? They don't even know where it's set up, why it's set up like that. So, find somebody that you can pay to help you, get along. Because even if you have cheap shocks or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like every combination can always be better, So that's just what we've seen,
Yeah. And, you don't need all this high dollar stuff really to make it work. I mean, really, you can go really fast with some strange singles on a stock suspension Mustang. You don't need a whole lot. Are the nice shocks that have more adjustability and, this and that, but you can do a lot with a little for sure.
So when people come to you, whether it's over the phone, internet, or bring their vehicle to you, what are the most common mistakes you're seeing with their vehicles in terms of suspension setup or?
Like Jason said, and what I was talking about earlier, I would say the number one thing that I probably find wrong with every single vehicle that I set up is the bump steer. That the bump steer is off. And so if you don't know what bump steer is, basically bump steer is when the toe is how your front tires point in or out. That's what makes the car drive straight. Is when the toe changes as the suspension travels. So basically, a race car you want set up with between a 16th and an 1/8 inch of toe in. You don't ever want any toe out. If it's towed out in the front, the car's going to be real darty and it's going to drive terrible. So you always want it to be towed in like a 16th of an inch is perfect. But you want to maintain that 16th of an inch toe in all the way through the front end travel from the front shock completely compressed all the way to fully extended. And so that's difficult to do. But what you do is, like, if you buy a bump steer kit, it comes with a bunch of spacers to where you can move the tie rod up and down. And you basically put them spacers in there to try to get the toe to stay the same throughout the entire suspension travel. Normally, a good starting point is just to put the tie rod parallel to the lower control arm, and that'll get you really close. But I would say pretty much 100% of cars that come into my shop that I set up, the bump steer is off. Whether it's a little, some cars are a lot, you know. And then everybody always thinks that, you know, if the car is driving bad, they automatically assume it's the back. But if it tows out at all, it will drive absolutely terrible. So that's probably the number one problem that I see. And then other than that, it's just like silly things, like things binding up, like, is the anti-roll bar hitting the floor, or, you know, is the ride height of your rear shock set up completely wrong? You know, like, for instance, if you want to separate the car and you have a 5-inch travel shock and it's sitting at 5 inches extended at ride height, well, you only have an inch of shock to extend, you know, so just stupid stuff like that.
All right. So I think that's kind of covers all the generic basics for everyone, and we can start getting into some of these more specific questions. Probably the one I see the most of is ladder bar.
Ladder bars are easy.
Yeah. Well,
you don't have a lot of option.
Yeah. Ladder bars are simple, but they suck to adjust. They suck. Like, if you want to shorten or lengthen the ladder bar, you got to damn near take the whole thing out of the car to run the rod end in the front of it in. So, whereas, you know, 4-link bars are awesome because the one side's a right hand and the other side's a left hand. So you can shorten or lengthen the bar really quick and easy from under the car. So the ladder bars are definitely a lot more difficult to adjust, but you don't have as much adjustment. And once you get them set, they work really well. I mean, people have been running ladder bars forever, radials, slicks, whatever. I mean, ladder bars work really well. They just don't have a lot of adjustment. So that's really the only downfall to them.
Yeah. When you're talking, like most people are asking, you know, what instant center, stuff like that, your ladder bar is your instant center, basically. Like, because you have two lines going to a fixed point. So that's the downside of a ladder bar, is like, that is a fixed point. You can kind of raise it and lower it if it's adjustable. But you better hope that instant center that ladder bar is going to work for you.
Yeah. So if you have a 30-inch ladder bar, you got a 30-inch long instant center. You can never make it any shorter or longer. It's always 30 inches long.
Yeah.
You can move it up and down, but you can't make it longer.
Yep.
But I mean, that's really, I mean, when you're setting up a car on a small tire, normally you're setting it up with a 30 to 40-inch long instant center. So a ladder bar in that range, you know, is going to put you about where you need it. So for the average person, ladder bars are great.
Well, and that's why, like, TRZ has a ladder bar kit, like, you can get it 30 to 36 inches. And for the money, man, that ladder bar kit is awesome.
Oh, it's really cheap. Yeah.
But the reason that it's that length is because back in the day, X275, you could run stock suspension or ladder bar. So they built it to the length that worked on an X275 car. Like, that's why you see so many ladder bars at that length, because that was a preferred instant center on, you know, a drag radial car at the time. So, but again, great kit for the money. You should answer that question, Brad.
Wait. I can answer it. Best weight placement. Well, it completely depends on what you're trying to do. If you are trying to add
no prep,
if you're trying to add weight to the car, to get to, like, say, a class minimum weight or something, weight on the rear end housing is a great place to add it, because it doesn't affect the sprung weight of the car. And then it's also not really going to affect your front to rear percentage easy. So if the car already works and you hang, 50 pounds on the rear end housing, it's not going to make it any more wheelie happy or anything. Whereas if you put it in the rear bumper, it is going to make it more wheelie happy. But on the flip side of that, if you are putting weight in the car to try to get more traction, you're going to have to put a lot more weight on the rear end than you would in the back bumper, because when you put weight in the back bumper of the car, you have leverage. I mean, think about Beaterbaum's butt hurt bar is the perfect example of this. Well, the farther you can put the weight back behind the car, the more leverage you have. So the more it tries to pick up the front of the car like a teeter-totter, the farther it is back without having as much weight. So, if you put 50 pounds right over top of the axle or on the axle versus 50 pounds 10 feet behind the axle, the 50 pounds that's 10 feet behind the axle is going to act way heavier than the 50 pounds on. You would have to put, 500 pounds on the rear end housing to achieve the same effect, So the weight back in the back bumper or, on parachute area, or Beaterbaum's butt hurt bar is going to be way more effective for traction because you have the leverage that it's multiplying that weight by. So.
On a lower horsepower car, 15 to 1700 rear wheel, pros and cons of switching to a low prep brackets or just keep adding power to hit it harder.
Well, it depends on what kind of suspension you already have. So.
I think he's referring to the short upper four link is what I think he's referring to. But.
Yeah. Well, the low prep brackets is going to, anytime. So if you go back to, like Jason was saying, the ladder bar theory, well, the ladder bar is your instant center. The shorter your instant center is, the quicker it's going to react, the quicker it's going to separate to hit the tire. So if you got a, 12-inch long 4-link bar, it's going to separate really quickly. If you have a 40-inch long 4-link bar, it's going to separate really slowly. So that's the problem with a traditional 4-link with equal upper and lower bars and really long bars, is it's hard to get it to separate, at the initial release of the trans brake button. They're really mild and they don't want to hit the tire. So that's where our shorter upper bar or a Mustang. So let me step back. So that's the whole reason that we made the shorter upper bar 4-link, is to make it act more like a Mustang, where it hits the tire quickly off trans brake release and it sets the tire and drives. So, if you're having a problem with sticking the tire on the starting line, then the low prep brackets or just bolting a set of conversion brackets that we sell, would definitely help you. Anything you can do to shorten your bars or shorten your instant center is going to help you hit the tire harder.
Next one we got, is it possible to be competitive with an independent rear end, or should I
I can answer that one.
Is it possible?
Yes. Is it a good idea? No.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with an independent rear is you don't have any adjustment. There's really nothing you can do. Like Rodney and RPM, they have a really, a really competitive Ultra Street car for years. But then, it's just really tough, because you have no adjustment. So, if you're, and the thing when you're talking about radial racing, radial stuff, they're on a really good racetrack, right? So the racetrack will band-aid a lot for you. So it's just tough, man. I mean, and what's your definition of competitive?
Yeah.
But
the problem with the independent car is that you don't have the mechanical ability to separate the car like a 4-link does. So it's always going to squat no matter what you do. So it's Yeah, it's tough.
When you're talking like if in generally speaking, like when we're giving advice or, when somebody calls us, we like the car to separate. So if it's on a 28-10-5 or a small tire, slick, radial, doesn't matter what it is. And regardless of surface, we like it to separate. So that's from the realm of what advice that you're going to get. So, that's from the phone aspect. The problem that I see with most people is they're calling everybody to get ideas from, and they're not listening to one person or one shop. They're kind of grabbing a bunch from a bunch of different people. And there's a ton of people out there that, don't have the same school of thought that we do, that get race cars down the track super fast.
Yeah.
So, you got to pick your team of who you want to help you and ride with that. Cause there's a lot of talented individuals that, would probably disagree with us. They would rather see the car squat. Well, that's just not how we think the best way to get the car down the track is.
Yeah.
So.
What are your thoughts on F-body suspension and where to start?
Buy a Mustang, put it on Marketplace and buy a Mustang.
Yeah.
You're breaking up.
Like I said, we're Chevy guys.
Yeah.
We
I
are.
know. I gotta be honest.
We run all
it is-
Chevy engines.
Yeah.
It is a great-
kind of a Chevy,
Yeah.
I guess,
But
Yeah, the Mustang is a
the
great
best
platform.
thing that you can do to an F body is put a shorter torque arm in it.
yes,
The best thing you can do to it.
yeah. There's a bunch of different companies that make stuff like that. Like Midwest Chassis, they're kind of the F body people, I would say. Racecraft also makes an F body housing, but to Brad's point, a short in that 30 to 40 inch range is a great place to great length. And those guys, we do not sell F body suspension parts. There's a reason that we don't, because there's a lot of really awesome people that already do that. So if you're trying to make your car work, man, reach out to one of them companies that I'm saying, and they can get you set up with something better. So.
Please discuss bar spreads versus IC.
I can probably answer that one.
Well, I mean, they kind of go hand in
They do,
hand.
but- There's a history lesson here, though.
Yeah.
Really,
Well, yeah.
can be.
Well, so the instant center is a calculated number of where the bars meet if you draw imaginary lines. So if you spread the bars farther apart, your instant center gets longer, so they go hand in hand. But I don't know, like what Jason's referring to is that your big tire slick guys always want to go off bar spreads, but that's really a poor way to measure the four link because you're not getting the full picture of it, because you can have the same spread and have the bars pointed up or down, so and have a completely different instant center. So, when you actually plot out the instant center and you see what the instant center and the anti-squat is, you have a much better picture of how the car is going to act.
Well, and like Jerry Bickle wrote a book a long time ago, like there's like a Jerry Bickle chassis book. A lot of people call it the Chassis Bible. And he talks about, bar spread. That's his big thing. Well, back then, when you're talking about bar spread, you're talking, to Brad's point, you're talking about a tube chassis, pro stocker, whatever it is. And Bickle built a lot of those cars. So he's put in really the same four link and all that stuff. So if you have one of his cars, he would tell you a spread that would, you would go to that. It's kind of an easy button. Well, what has happened is now, like, there's a lot of different four links out there. There's a lot of different bar links. There's a lot of different cars. The radial stuff, really, you started to see a lot of unique cars, right? Like things that couldn't be built exactly the way, the cylinder number one needs to be even with the front strut. Well, when you're dealing with a factory firewall deal, there's a lot of rules and stuff in place. So that all affected, the car front to back. So like Brad's saying, you have to plot it. And that's what I see. The other thing with me being on the phone more, and Brad doesn't answer the phone that often, but this one time that he answered, it was so funny. This guy called us, he had a set of our brackets, and he's like, "Hey man, I got all these holes. Which holes do I need to put this in to start with?" And Brad was like, "Man, if I knew what hole you needed, I would have made them with 4 holes and not all these." It was really funny, you know, but
Yep.
Why 1 inch shorter arms? Feel like it's messing with my camber and not letting me get enough.
well, 1 inch shorter in a lot of places could be bad, but
I'm assuming he's talking about a Mustang or something, but normally when you're talking about shorter arms in the front, they do it just to move the wheel in a little bit. And say the lower the car is, the more you have to suck the wheels in so that they don't rub the fender. So
What information do you guys need when setting up your short top bar 4-link?
it doesn't, I mean, anytime you're plotting out a 4-link, pretty much all 4-link calculators work the same. So you're going to measure height off the ground up to the center of the bolt holes, and then height off the ground to the center of the bolt holes, and then distance from the center of the rear axle forward. And then you plug all that in, and it'll give you your instant center height and length. And then the anti-squat is kind of dictated by the wheelbase of the car and where the calculated center of gravity is. So that's a little bit more complex, but
look at Josh's face. He's like,
yeah, he's falling asleep already on us.
I'm listening, man. I'm trying to soak it all in. Oh. Thoughts on monoleaf and cow tracks on S10 or better option?
Man, monoleafs and cow tracks is awesome. Like, I mean, they really work great. I mean, look at how far Billy and them's been with their little S10 and you know, with really not a lot of adjustment. And you know, on the flip side of that, like Ron Rhodes's car for X275, like granted, you know, he's on a really well prepared racetrack. But Ron's car is just, it's got a monoleaf and a cow track. And even Ronnie Rhodes's car, which is his boy, Ronnie's car, been 449, I think, in Ultra Street. But it doesn't even have a slider on the back. It's just got a shackle. So, you know, those guys are, you know, they're really good at what they do, you know, and they've just fine-tuned, you know. So yeah, you can absolutely make them work. It's a great option.
And that just goes back to my point of that you don't necessarily need, you know, all this extravagant 4-link and, you know, these super high dollar shocks and this and that, the recipe for making any car work is, one, to make it smooth. Smooth is fast. All the suspension has to move smooth. The power has to come in smooth. Like when you're talking about a small tire car, you know, any little thing can upset that thing. So, and make it lose the tire. So everything just has to be fluid and smooth from suspension to power management. And, but you know, it's just making everything happy. You know, you got to make the suspension happy. You got to make the tire happy. You got to make the converter happy. You got to make the engine happy. You got to make the power management happy. When you make all of those things happy and work together is when the car works really good. And, you know, it just goes to show with people doing it on really basic leaf spring stuff that it's more about the recipe than the physical products that you have.
It's about the laps, man. You know, anybody, if you take Billy and them, for example, like that's a real basic setup. Think of how many laps that S10 has on it. Think of how many laps Ron Rhodes's car has on it with the same basic, you know, setup in it. You know, he's small block nitrous leaf spring car that most people would have given up a long time ago and cut it up and done something else with it. But because of all those laps down the racetrack, he has so much information on that car. And that's part of running a successful race program is don't just, you know, buy what you can afford. And then also make laps on that car. Like if it's the choice of buying all these high dollar shocks or making more laps down the racetrack, pick more laps, man. You know, like learn that car. And that's what the guys that are really good, the people that have done this for a while and you see them in the winner's circle, most of them, to be honest with you, probably don't have the best parts. that's, we work on a lot of really nice stuff, a lot of cars that have won championships, a lot of cars that are super competitive. And I'll be honest, man, most of them don't have the best stuff front to back. They're really basic, but they get raced every weekend. They are making laps down the racetrack, and that is hard to beat. And they also take really good notes. Like if I'll pick on Brad, like he takes amazing notes every time that we get on the racetrack. He knows where the shocks are set at. He knows where has the limiters. He knows everything. He knows the right height of the car, all that stuff. So it just, being able to understand your race car and understand what it does when you do certain things is worth way more than than most things.
Have you ever had to set up a rear end with Ride Tech shockwave struts for both street driving and a bit of radio racing?
You can have that
one. No. We've worked on some Ride Tech stuff, but only on like street rod stuff.
Yeah. That's asking too much of something.
Yeah.
Can you explain the difference between your low prep brackets and your standard brackets?
Can you put a video up, Rick?
Yeah. So basically, the only difference between the two brackets is that the low prep brackets have a shorter upper bar. So our low prep brackets, the upper bar is 6 inches shorter than our traditional brackets. So which makes the upper bar makes it easier to get the instant center shorter. So it easier to make the car separate to hit the tire,
Yeah. And if you we have a great plethora of YouTube videos of explaining the differences of all the 4 links, why you would want a certain 4 link compared to the other one. And they're great, man. I mean, we really give away, we've been told that we give away too much, so we really try to empower you to make a good decision on your race car and understand why you would make that decision. Because when you're talking a 4 link, it's really not a one size fits all. There's definitely a lot of differences. So,
what can you tell me about your low prep setup in a Chevy Vega wagon with 900 horsepower?
It worked great.
Be awesome. Awesome, because you already got a Vega.
Vegas are cool.
But to that question, go back, watch our video. It's called 4Link 101. And you get to spend about 28 minutes with Brad. So,
and I just put a link to their YouTube channel in the comments. So everybody make sure you go over to their channel and subscribe after the live feed. TSR, GTR, FTW, honest opinion. Could your parts on that GTR cause it to launch so smooth? I think that's one of the smoothest GTRs I've ever seen on 6-7 second cars.
Yeah, that's because one, it wasn't all-wheel drive anymore. All-wheel drive is terrible for drag racing when you're trying to get fast.
Yeah.
And then 2, yeah, it doesn't squat anymore. So, it's just a way smoother.
Yeah, way smoother deal.
It's just way smoother.
Yeah, and
front to back.
And Jamie Miller's on the keyboard of that car.
Yeah,
so
that doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. But thank you, Martin. That was nice, man. Thank you.
How does instant center height affect the way the suspension acts?
So basically you have what's called an anti-squat line. So if you're below the anti-squat line, the car will squat. If you're above the anti-squat line, the car will separate. So basically the higher you make the instant center, the more it's going to separate. The lower you make the instant center, the more it's going to squat.
Hang on, I got to pee, boys, up here.
That's not fair. What if I got to pee?
Yeah, you got to sit down.
Ricky's going to have to answer questions. So at the start of the hit, when the rear end wants to rotate backwards, the upper control arm straightens out and puts the tire into the ground, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. That's called separation. Yep.
So do an extension. You don't have positive camber in the front, maybe. I'm sure these are back about 8 minutes. So he was probably he was talking to us.
He was probably talking about that GTR.
Yeah. You guys plan on making a long travel front suspension kit in the future?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of ideas that I have for new products, but most of them involve rear suspension. I don't know. Maybe.
Ladder bars for no prep / backside.
Again, ladder bars work really good. They work really good on no prep stuff. They work really good on any small tire cars.
What would be a starting point for any squat value and rear weight percent on a no prep?
That really depends on what kind of no prep you're doing. So on a running on a slick, well, any small tire really, we like to separate them. In my opinion, they take the hit better. I've never had any good luck. I know there's people out there that try to squat them, but with my experience, anytime you try to squat the car, they just spin on the hit no matter what you do. So they always seem to take the hit better and leave the starting line better if you separate them just a little bit. So, but basically any no prep car we run on a slick, and on a slick, you don't want to separate it too much. So, I normally only shoot for like 110 to 130% anti-squat. Whereas like a radial car, you might run 130 to 180% anti-squat. So on the slick tire car, you want to run a lot less anti-squat, because if you run too much anti-squat, it'll just crush the tire. Or even try to bounce the tire. So you got to be careful putting too much anti-squat in a slick tire car. It'll make the rear tire unhappy. But yeah, I like to run a little bit. Like I said, like 120 is a really good number to start with. As far as weight, depends if you're running front side or backside stuff. If you're running front side, no prep, we would normally run cars like 50-50 front to rear. But on the backside or on like a bad street, like a blacktop road or something, you want to be 55% on the rear minimum. I would say most successful backwards track cars nowadays are probably 60% on the rear, if not more.
What kind of scaling numbers as far as left to right difference should you see on the front end? Do you want them close?
Honestly, I don't even look at the scale numbers on the front end. I don't care. The front tires are barely touching the ground, so they don't really matter. As far as scaling numbers in the back, left to right, you always want the back left a hair heavier than the back right. And because naturally the car, when you launch, it wants to roll over onto the back right tire. So the faster the car, the more weight you'll need on the back left to get it to go straight. So it really just depends on how fast the car is, but you always want the back left a little bit heavier than the back right.
For a guy just starting in no prep / street with 1200 horsepower SN95, is it better to stay with more stock style suspension and torque boxes, or is it worth it going full adjustable suspension and boxes?
Got it.
Yeah, you can answer that.
Man, just stick with your stock torque boxes. Like they're awesome. They really, and you may have missed it, but we were talking about, we've been personally like 104 on stock boxes, 440s in the 8th mile with one of our battle ready 8/8s and just welded up factory torque boxes. You want to brace them in, but man, they're tried and true. They work really good. Installing torque boxes in a Mustang kind of sucks. If anybody that's ever done it, it's not a fun job. So, you can do a lot with just that. And even Dave and Cheeseburger, which you guys may not know who they are, because probably most of the people that listen to your deals more no prep guys, but they run an Ultra Street Mustang that's won 3 championships back to back. That car had an 8.8 in it for a really long time, and has stock torque boxes in it. So actually has one of our mild steel 9 inches in it now, and again factory torque boxes. So you can do a lot with them, man.
Yeah. The only adjustment you need on a Mustang is on the rear end side. You want to be able to adjust the bar up and down. So a set of lower control arm brackets on the rear end, on the bottom of the rear end, is all you need.
If you could be a cat or a dog, which one would you be, and what's your favorite animal at the zoo?
I'm allergic to cats, man.
I like all animals.
Yeah.
I have 2 dogs and a cat.
I'd like the giraffe at the zoo, because I always want to karate chop its neck just to see what happens. You know what I mean? It's just so long, like why did God make it like that? But then you see him get to the tree, you're like, that's why God did that.
When I was in Africa and I come outside of our little what they call it, a rendezvous,
Yeah,
the little round hut that we slept in. When we come outside, there's giraffes walking around, and I was like, holy cow. Like, that thing is huge. It's just crazy. They were like 50 feet from me, just eating off the tree. I'm like, that's nuts.
That's cool. Sliders, we like sliders. So we do sell a complete adjustable leaf spring system, but yeah, we personally like the sliders. So
Thoughts on making a foot brake car work well? Super short instant setter to hit the tire hard?
I don't know. I've honestly never tried to go real fast with a foot brake car.
Yeah, we need my dad here for that. Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question, but
well, and a lot of foot brake cars, like depending on what the converter that's in it.
Yeah.
Like my dad with super stock stuff, which is a class that he races, they weren't allowed to have trans brakes forever, so they have to leave on the foot brake. Well, man, some of them really loose converters, man, you can get after it on a foot brake.
Yeah.
So, and you're loading the suspension, so that's a whole nother kind of topic. Yeah. But yeah, if you're looking at information about loading a foot brake car, and like a stock and super stock forums would be your friend. Those guys are old enough where they actually still have a forum. It's called classracer.com. It's still active. Bunch of 80-year-old dudes with foot brake cars. So check them out.
And when all else fails, you just use the Kevin Neal method. You just trial and error. You'd always say, you just move all the bars this way and see if it got better or worse. And then you move all the bars the other way and see if it got better or worse. So that method actually works really good when you don't know what to do. Just make a drastic change in one direction and see if it worked better or worse. So
I'll answer that question. So Cletus and them don't listen, and every rear end housing that we sell comes with a stud kit. So in every any rear end housing that has on the faceplate has that is threaded, you are supposed to use a stud kit
with a nut on the back.
With a nut on the backside, and we send that with every rear end housing. So they were lazy and put bolts in it, which you do not do. So,
to add to that, not only did they put bolts in it, but I think that the bolts actually like backed out. I think that it, from them tires shaking over and over and over again, I think that it actually shook the third member a little bit loose, and then it was finally loose enough that it started to pull the threads. So I don't think it just happened.
Yeah.
I say we have yet to see one a rear end housing pull the threads out of the third member. I think it was just the bolts got loose and then did some damage. So
yeah, and actually they like we talked to Ty a little bit. We talked to Cletus a little bit too. Cletus is awesome, really great dude. But they honestly just chased the threads, put the studs in it that they were supposed to have, and they don't have any more issues. So didn't even really break it.
Yeah, it didn't even really tear it up.
Mr. David Biggs from Young and Boosted.
Man, look at that guy's glasses and hair. You should answer that man's question.
He is awesome looking. I will say
wow.
that.
You need any modeling gigs, David? I mean, we got some bald eagles we can put on your head.
Hey, David's slimming down. He's been working out. We've been talking a little bit.
Heck
and,
yeah.
He's gotten in the gym too, man. So we're all in this together.
Best profile pic we've seen today.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
honestly.
But no, there's a ton of calculators out there. The one that I prefer is Performance Trends, but it's not free. You have to buy it. The best free calculator out there is probably the Baseline Suspension one. That one's free. You might be able to find some other. I think you used to be able to find on the forums back in the day. There were some people that had some free four-link calculators and stuff, but I don't know if they were necessarily drag racing specific. But yeah, Baseline Suspension is probably the best free four-link calculator that's easy to use online.
We were actually talking about that today.
Yeah.
He wants a presidential seal in his office.
Yeah, on like the Oval Office has it in the carpet in front of his desk. So I'm like, can I get some carpet with that presidential seal on it? I'm like, that'd be really cool.
Rear engine car for drag racing, 911 MR2, etc.
No, but they work great.
I love watching the MR2s do wheelies.
Yeah, it's awesome.
What's cooler than MR2s do wheelies is when Porsche 911s do wheelies.
Yeah. I've not
really
seen
cool.
that, but the
Did
MR2 brothers are.
Did anybody see the Audi R8 doing power wheelies down at Bradenton last weekend?
Yes.
That was sick. That was sick. Yeah. And that just goes back to that's just weight percentage. You know what I mean? It's like them. You don't have to put no lead in the trunk to get 60% on the rear. They're set up for backtrack stuff right out of the gate.
Does rear adjustable shock mounts on a monoleaf cow track make a difference on no preps?
Not unless your shock is installed like completely wrong or something. Like you have way too long or way too short of a shock. That would be the only time that it would really help you.
When are you going to let Brad build a Pro Mod or a Pro 275?
That's an excellent question.
It is an excellent question. We have to sell first more race car parts.
Yeah. So we could afford to build a Pro Mod, Pro Mod Pro 275 roller, but we need somebody to give us an engine.
Yeah. So if you're on here and you'd like your engine to go real fast.
If somebody wants to give us a billet Hemi or something, I'll take it.
Perfect.
Does wheelbase affect your anti-squat percentage decision when setting up a car?
I don't know if it affects my decision on how I would set it up. But the wheelbase does affect the anti-squat number. Generally, depending on the wheelbase of the car, is normally I'm looking more at the front to rear weight percentage. You know, a longer wheelbase car is going to need more weight on the back for traction. Not as, isn't going to be as wheelie happy. So the shorter the wheelbase car, the more nose weight it'll need to keep the front end on the ground. But I normally set them up about pretty similar when it comes to rear suspension.
Adam does have a huge cat. It's the size of a juvenile Rottweiler.
I could not go to Adam's house.
Is it like an exotic cat?
Like the Tiger King? Or?
Yeah.
Is he the Ohio Tiger King?
Yeah.
He's a Adams, Indiana guy. It's Charlie Brown staying nitrous.
Yeah, till Charlie. Yeah, forever.
100%.
Yeah, I shouldn't say forever. we did post like a picture of it with a billet Hemi by it, but that billet Hemi actually was one of our customer motors. So it's just
Jason was just trolling.
Yeah, I was just trolling people, but yeah, we have a 5-inch board space motor out of Uncle Tony's right now. So hopefully in the next couple weeks we'll go pick that bad boy up. So it's 747 cubic inches of bald eagle. It's going to be awesome. So
when's your birthday?
tomorrow. So
Tomorrow. We should have did this. Terry, you let me down. Should have done happy birthday with everybody. Got that. Your preferences for top bar height off of the housing.
Well, everybody always wants where do I put my bar? Where does the instant center be? Where does this need to be? Well, there's no magic number for any car. It's, it depends. Is it a big tire car, a small tire car? Is it on a slick? Is it on a radial? So there's just way too many variables. But, ultimately, we do more small tire stuff than anything, but you just get your instant center in the ballpark and your anti-squat in the ballpark, and then you go test. And, that's all that when you're setting a car up, it's no different than putting a base map, in a computer to make it run. It's just a starting point, so it's your best educated guess. And then you got to go to the racetrack and test, and it might be happy. It might not be happy at all. You might have to make drastic changes, but most of the time, I can get them pretty close. And then, with just some shock adjustment, normally we're right where we need to be. What happened, Ricky?
Nope, we're back.
If your car goes straight on a good pass, but spins it's way out of control, and that sounds goofy, but it's almost not drivable when it spins, unlike my other car was.
Probably got an issue in the front end.
No, I would say if it drives so normally if it doesn't go straight when it's spinning, it's because that it's real heavy on one side or the other on the back. So for instance, whichever tire has the most weight on it is the tire that's going to drive forward more, so especially on a slick where a radial, you don't run into that as much because they're either normally dead hooked or up in smoke. But the slick will spin and keep driving forward. So the slicks are definitely a lot more sensitive to weight. So say if the left side, back left tire has 800 pounds on it and the back right tire only has 400 pounds on it, well, then the car is probably always going to drive right, especially when it's spinning, because you have so much weight on the back left tire, or vice versa. If the back right side of your car is really heavy, then it's going to drive left. So, and then you can also, not with just weight, but you can also, and this is why scaling the car can be really important, is if you have a traditional 4-link or ladder bars, you can put preload in them. You can also do that with the anti-roll bar. If you have a stock suspension car, you can only preload with the anti-roll bar, because in a stock suspension car with triangulated uppers, you can't put any preload in it. So, but with preload, whether it be the anti-roll or the 4-link, you can move weight to the back right tire or the back left tire with that preload. So if you have a ton of preload cranked in your 4-link or your anti-roll bar, then yeah, it's probably going to drive one way or the other, depending on which tire is preloaded. So it's always best when you're starting out to start with your 4-link or ladder bar or your anti-roll bar all neutral. And then, like I said, go to the racetrack, make passes. And then, if the car drives left 3 times in a row in both lanes, then yeah, you probably need to make an adjustment. So.
Buddy, we have not had enough snow to do any snow prep, and it breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's been a bad year for snow.
It sucks. He hasn't put the invites out just yet.
We did talk about that. If we did, we're not. Yeah, we're Brown County's rough, boys.
Yeah.
But I think if we got the invite, we would probably go, just because it is a pretty big pile of money. So,
Oh, really?
well, and we have a car.
Let me throw your hat back in the ring then.
Yeah,
I just hate all the
Sarah,
grass. And the
remember.
people standing on the guardrails.
yeah. We did. My wife. We talked to my wife about it.
She won't let him go. Don't let Jason act all
Nah,
tough
well,
on
when
here.
we told her what it was,
He won't be allowed to go.
when we told her what it was paying, she's like,
Please.
So no, I think thank you for the happy birthday, but it would be tough to not go and know that we have a car that can win. So I'm pretty confident what I think we can do on that surface, and what he can do tune in, and Heath can do tune in, and that's a nitrous cars racetrack, and we're gonna have a nitrous car that's also gonna back half really hard now. So
It don't matter. Ain't nobody back half and
no,
hard at
not
Brown
down there,
County.
but yeah, not down there, but yeah, we could do well. Yeah, we might even put the old motor back in.
Yeah.
yeah,
a bit better.
yeah, the old motor would
Well,
be better. But
It is smoother now. They flattened a lot of stuff out, Tara.
Yeah.
It's a lot nicer now than.
I don't care about the
You
bumps. Like I said, I don't like the
like-
grass
Shh,
and
listen,
the
man.
4-inch tall guardrails with people sitting on them.
Yeah,
That's what I don't like.
Well, it is kind of hood though.
Yeah, you can't control people. I mean, they do.
That part's never going to change.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just don't want to see nobody die there.
yeah.
And
No, I agree with you. Absolutely. Do you subscribe more to anti-squat percentages or leverage of the rear end versus chassis, or vice versa on chassis setup?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of look at the whole picture when I'm setting a car up, but like I said earlier, pretty much every small tire car that we prefer it to separate, so I'm looking at the anti-squat, definitely, but you're also looking at the instant center length and stuff, and how that's going to affect the leverage is going to affect how fast or how slow it separates. So I don't know. They kind of go hand in hand.
How can you tell the difference between low tire pressure or hitting the tire too hard on a ladder bar with a slick?
Well, if you're too low on tire pressure, normally you'll see it on the racetrack. So you'll see like the paddle marks where the tire's wadded up and driving over itself. If you're hitting the tire too hard, normally you'll see it like in the initial hit, right off trans brake release. So it like if the tire's trying to bounce off the ground, then you're definitely hitting it too hard.
Yeah. And that's where that slow-mo iPhone video really helps,
Yeah.
I've watched him watch a slow-mo iPhone video for 30 minutes, just frame by frame, looking at what the suspension's doing, looking at the tire and what the front end's doing at the same time. Just, it's there, I think with the suspension stuff, again, for me being on the phone more, typically people are looking for an easy answer, right? Like what do you want me to set this at? And that's not our train of thought. Even when you ask Brad a question, you can literally see the wheels turning, because he's trying to answer your question in the best way possible. Not just give you an easy answer, so.
But yeah, generally you don't need a whole lot of hit on a slick car, just enough to set the tire and keep it from spinning on the initial hit, but you don't need to hit the tire very hard.
On a strut 4-link tube chassis car, how much of a change would be needed to make a swap back and forth from big tires to 275 suspension wise?
Not really a lot. I would say you're definitely going to have to move the 4-link bars because on the 275 with a traditional 4-link, you're going to have to set it up pretty aggressive for a 275 radial, whereas the big tire is going to be not aggressive at all. You actually want it to squat a little bit so that because the big tire, you don't want to crush it and it'll just wad up on itself. It's hard enough to keep them things round. So you're going to have to make a major bar change and then also a major ride height change. So those are going to be your two biggest changes is ride height and what holes your bars are in. So it's doable. People do go back and forth, but it's going to be a lot of testing to see what works and making sure you take good notes to know exactly, okay, well, when I switch to this tire, I need to raise the ride height 3 holes and I need to move the bar to this hole and this bar to this hole, so it's going to be, make sure you take really good notes and lots of testing.
And
So
it might take a different shock on the back or, it just depends. So, and that's where like our conversion brackets really work out nice. So like our conversion brackets, they're designed to bolt into our 4-link bracket to make it the shorter upper, but you can modify them to fit into other people's 4-link brackets. So, and depending on how long the 4-link bar is, if it's a longer, bar, going to that shorter upper would really help you. So. Thank you. Thanks for loving Charlie Brown. We can't believe how much people love Charlie Brown. And we only raced it for a year, so it's pretty humbling. So thank you.
Preload versus rear steer.
I'm a big fan of preload. Especially in small tire cars, I try not to run little to no rear steer at all. Some big tire cars, if you're racing pro mod, those things are just so violent leaving the line. They leave on so much power. And then big tires are just, they're just a handful. It's so hard to get those cars to go straight every time that, sometimes that some rear steer is necessitated to get the car to leave the starting line straight. But pretty much all small tire cars, I don't run any rear steer in.
I see you, Limpy.
Me and Limpy are like this on those iPhones.
Thank you for your support, Limpy. Like, man, it means a lot. So thank you. There's a few guys that like that mono shock deal. And I think the dude that works on Todd's car, what's his name? He owns Bad Habits Fab. Do you remember what Jeremy? He likes that mono shock deal. The hard thing with when you do something that's way out of, the realm of what's normal, it's tough to get somebody to work with you. So most of all your shock data, stuff like that is, for a car that's set up more traditionally. So I couldn't speak to why exactly they do that. Because it does work. I've seen a couple of that guy's cars work really well. But it's just so different that it would be hard to get, support other than from that one person. So,
yeah. And I don't have any experience tuning a mono shock or anything. So I can't give a whole lot of input on it, but I know like a lot of people have tried a lot of different stuff over the years, especially on the dragsters. Yeah. Like they tried a lot of swing arm stuff and mono shocks and all kinds of different stuff. And we ended up back to a regular 4-link with coilovers behind the rear end. So just because they're trying something doesn't necessarily mean that it works. But like I said, I don't personally have any experience with it. So
generally on leaf spring cars, there's no instant center adjustment, and you keep the leaf parallel to the ground with your adjustable leaf brackets. Do you still like seeing the leaf parallel or angled?
Well, I would say you do have instant center adjustment on a leaf spring car. That's what your traction bar is basically doing. But as far as moving the leaf spring up and down, yeah, it does. I don't know. I don't know exactly how to measure it, but yeah, in theory, if you move the eye of the leaf spring up, it does raise the instant center. But yeah, basically you want to keep the leaf spring straight under power as most as you can, to keep from bending the leaf spring. That's a lot of the problem with, or Ryan with the diesel Nova that we built was having is, he kept bending leaf springs. So that's ultimately why we put a 4-link in it, is just because the leaf spring physically wasn't strong enough to hold the torque that thing was making. So, and it was heavy, but yeah, I don't know. Leaf springs are weird.
Yeah, we did race a leaf spring car for a season. Mike and Sam Farmer's car. We raced Ultra Street with it, and we, had our adjustable deal on it, and we did really well with the car. It's just the leaf springs definitely is it's just a different deal.
It's definitely tougher.
Yeah,
you don't have as much adjustment, so it definitely is tougher.
Yeah, we've tried to race everything. Like with our first Mustang, it was an 8.8. With stock suspension, stock torque boxes. Then we raced Mike and Sam's leaf spring car, and then now we're in our, in Charlie in a short upper deal. And then Brad has his hands on a lot of other cars also, but we try to provide customer service from a point of where we've already been, so that's one of the reasons we're racing no prep is it's such a hot thing right now. And like, you can't take people to the winter circle if you've never been there. So.
It's the difference in having a long set of wheelie bars versus having, say, traditional set of pro stock style wheelie bars. 4-link car, strut tube chassis, 706 glide, trying to run some 440s, 50s, 70s, 90s heads up stuff. Do you need a longer?
It just depends. So the longer the bar, the easier it's gonna hit the ground. So if you got a really short set of wheelie bars, it's going to smack them real hard when you're trying to go fast, and which upsets the car easier. So the longer the wheelie bar, the softer it's going to hit the ground. So that's why pro mods run extremely long wheelie bars, is just because when you're leaving on all that power going, 9, 20, 60 foot, that, it just smashes the bars into the ground real hard. So if you had a short wheelie bar on there, it would smash the bar into the ground so hard and so quickly that it would basically just pick the back tire off the ground and just unload the back tire. So it really, just try to run the wheelie bars that you have, unless you get to a point to where you're smashing the wheelie bars into the ground so hard that you can't get the car to work. If you're at that point, then yeah, it would definitely be worth trying a longer set of wheelie bars.
Thoughts on hitting the tire soft or hard with RPM and wheel speed versus killing it with launch retard?
Wow. It's small tire is a very fine line of wheel speed. It's not like a big tire. You can pretty much make as much wheel speed as you can, and it'll take it. A 28-10-5 slick, there's a very narrow window between wheel speed and still driving forward and up in smoke. So, yeah, if you can keep the car in that window and let it black track a little bit, they're fast. But most people cannot read the surface well enough and power manage accordingly to make wheel speed consistently and go A to B every time. So it is definitely easier to just try to dead hook the tire and drive. It's going to be more consistent. It might not be quite as fast, but it's easier and more consistent for sure.
Does long travel help and no front end on Mustang help?
I mean, yeah.
I love Lippy,
first off,
man.
yeah, I think all classes should have a front end required rule.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
that's the class racer in us, you know.
Yeah.
It's
the no front end stuff is horrible. But
yeah, it is. And I get like if you wreck and you want to make the race or whatever.
yeah, that's one thing.
I'm good
but
with that.
yeah, purposely taking your front end off to try to lose front end weight. Come on.
Yeah, it's
Come on. But what were we talking? Oh, long travel. The long travel. The long travel front struts, I mean, theoretically, they do help, especially on the backwards track, or like I said, the really bad street stuff. The higher you can get the front end in the air, it's essentially like the car's wheeling, the more weight you're going to have on the back tire. So, like, yes, there is a benefit to it. Is it required? I don't think so. How many people are there that are out there going really fast with not a lot of front end travel? Granted, we don't race backside stuff very often, but like I said earlier, we only run like 4 inches of front end travel, and we've been 116 60 foot this year a bunch. So,
and on like, I mean, you were at Turkey Bash, weren't you, Josh?
Well, they literally scraped and washed the racetrack. It was as bare concrete as bare concrete gets, and we went, I think, a 119 60 foot off the trailer, and we were like 8th pair or something.
Yeah. Better start off with slicker radio for first timer.
It would just depend on what kind of racetrack you're going to get, and really how fast the car is. So they're way easier to drive on a radial. This like that's why you hear like a lot of these guys that have been drag radial racing for a while now. They don't want to go back to a slick, just because they race on a slick for so long. They move, they move around. So the radial is a lot easier to drive and get down the racetrack. But depending on what kind of racetrack you're at, it's a little tougher to get off the starting line if it's a higher horsepower deal. So,
what rear wheel speed slip percentage do you guys like to see on a slick down track at, say, Edgewater or similar no prep small tire track?
I don't. To be honest, I've never really looked at it in percentage. As far as a wheel slip percentage, I don't know. I just look at the data, and realistically, I don't want it to be spinning at all down track. Sometimes that's not possible, but if you really just keep putting power in it until the drive shaft starts getting choppy down track, and that it's trying to lose the tire, and that's about the limits of traction down there, unless you pile a bunch of weight in the back or add a bunch of wicker or something.
Yeah. Brad always does a really good job of, again, to that point, of giving me a really good drivable race car. That's what, as a driver, that's what you want. Like I especially on the no prep stuff, you see guys that, in my opinion, a lot of times they'll hang it out too long or whatever. And a lot of that's just an ill set up race car. It never needed to drive that bad. So.
Ideal rear suspension for S10 pickup doing no prep.
There's not really one. It wouldn't matter. It just.
Yeah. I mean,
you look at your budget,
yeah.
What can you afford to do? And, what makes sense? If your budget is race with what you got, then race what you got. If you can afford to take it to a shop like ours and have them 4-link it and do all that stuff, rad. But that might not be where you're at in your racing. So whatever you can do to get down the. Oh, okay.
He's big money. Adam just drop it off tomorrow.
Big check.
Well, that too is, if you keep it on leaf springs, you don't have a whole lot of adjustment to F up.
Yeah.
Normally you give people a bunch of adjustment and they just go and F it all up. So.
That's a fair statement.
Sometimes simple is better.
I think there's some small tire guys that are doing that in there.
Yeah.
If I need chassis help, what do you guys charge to help with phone videos and stuff.
We don't do anything over the phone just because it's really tough. To how to judge that and stuff. It's a lot easier to have a personal conversation with you and look at the deal. So if you wanted to bring the car to us, the way that the setup and scale service works, once we get in this space in April, we'll open that back up. Our shop rate is $150 an hour. However long Brad works on it, that is how it works. Most of the time, it normally takes the day. And then, he'll look at your videos, stuff like that at that time. And then, like I said, give you some information of what he's seeing and what he would change, stuff like that. So that's the best way to do it. Over the phone, like I said, it's just tough.
So there's their contact info. Also, I put the link in the comments a couple times for everybody.
Yeah, and to be honest, if you just call me up asking questions about suspension, I know I know nothing about your car, and so I'm not really going to be able to help you. And two, that not being mean or anything, but if you haven't spent any money with us, we're not a free tech helpline, per se. So, but if you have our products on your car, obviously, yeah, we're going to try to help you with our products as much as we can. But if you have Team Z rear suspension on your car, don't call us for help. Call Team Z.
Yeah, Brad gets irritated at me all the time. It's like,
yeah.
It's tough, like, because we want to help people, but you would not believe how much our phone rings. It is. We are very, very lucky. It is. I'll be on the phone with somebody and I get off of it and we have, 2 or 3 voice messages. Like that happens all the time. So like my day literally is a lot of just being on the phone and calling people back. So, like my first question, that I ask is, hey, what products of ours do you have? So that I can guide you through that, and then most of the time, not most of the time, but a lot of times the answer is, well, I don't have any of your stuff, but what would you do? So it is tough because you don't know if somebody's going to buy something later, something like that. So you do try to be nice to everybody, but it's really tough to have that line because you already, you kind of have a bunch of people that have spent money for you waiting on your call back. You know what I mean? So just having that line is really tough. So,
yeah, it's just, it's not trying to be mean to anybody. It's just that we're going to help our customers first. Our customers come first. So, if you have our suspension products on your car, we're going to help you as much as we can.
Yeah.
But if you haven't bought anything from us, then, there's not a whole lot that I can help you with. So now I do set up a lot of cars that don't have any of our suspension products on it. So, like if you bring a car to me and, I set up and scale it, then yeah, you're going to get, my help as much as I can help you for that entire day. So
Theoretical question, 1200 horsepower-ish, won some rounds, hook's okay. Want to win backside, no prep, got 10 grand. Do I spend on power and tune or really fine tune the suspension just testing?
Just spend all your money on lead.
Sand. Yeah. If you want to go backtrack racing, the first thing you need is a lot of weight in the back.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't done as much of the backtrack stuff, but it kind of, in our opinion, you just pile a bunch of weight in the back of it and power manage the wheelie out of it. And rock out. And
obviously there's more to it than that. But
sand,
the easiest way to get traction on that junk backside track is just pile the weight in the back. It's going to be the easiest, cheapest thing you can do to get traction. I mean, I think everybody's seen the video of the Nova doing floor jack burnouts.
Yeah. What's that guy's name, Josh?
Yeah.
The guy that does the floor jack burnout. He's
Turtle.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that. He doesn't have that blazer anymore though. But yeah. That was
I do think it's
if
cool.
it works, it works.
How far? Like I
It's
remember.
fun to watch.
Yeah.
Well, like I remember, like when they did, like people would do when frontside no prep first became a thing, and like how sketchy that was, right? Like everybody was having trouble getting on the racetrack. Like there would be multiple wrecks every event. Like people were like, "This is the sketchiest thing ever," you know. And now, like I know how fast we've been. I know how fast like other people have been, and like, man, it's pretty awesome, like how figured out it is now. You know, if you would have told those people 3 years ago, like how fast we would go now, like people would say you're crazy. So
Even 2 years ago, it's made such a huge leap from
Oh yeah.
2 years ago. It's crazy. Need scale setup service on my 99 Silverado back half. So yeah, they said April.
Yep.
They'll be
Give us a
taking
call.
more working.
Yep.
Better not let you guys off the hook without some motivational Monday.
No, I really appreciate everybody that watches that, and you know, I really just appreciate all the comments and stuff, because man, it's not an easy task to kind of figure out something every week, and you know, like I'm a Christian, I love Jesus, but I don't want to push that on the people, right? Like I want to have a respectable conversation that everybody can kind of relate to. So those are my favorite comments, right? Of like the people that, you know, they're like, I'm not religious, but I love this. And really, man, it's just all, you know, a positive mental outlook will take you so far in life. Like it's unbelievable what just thinking positive, you know, and, it is, man. It's just unbelievable how far that will take you. So, and surrounding yourself with people that are like that, you know, quick motivational Monday, like one of our questions that we got a while ago is like, how do you find these people that you're surrounded with? Well, man, light attracts light, you know, and like there's two types of people in the world. You're either a thermostat, or you're the temperature in the room, and like thermostats are what can bring that temperature up or bring it down, you know? So, find yourself some people that you like to kick it with that have similar mindsets to you. So there it is. Brad stepped out to go pee, so you just got me for a minute.
I'm just, you know, every live feed has yahoos, and tonight's is this guy and this guy. I gotta ban them. I don't know what to do.
Dean did ask a question. He missed all the Mustang talking. Yeah, I mean, the Mustang is pretty much the greatest race car on the planet.
Oh God, do not. Him and Ryan been harassing me all night.
Well, it's not a Ford product, but it's just a race car. That's all it is.
Nah, you know, I just like to talk a little shit, and I love both those guys to death. They're great guys. How you feel about weight on the rear end compared to?
No prep compared to what was the?
Here we go. How do you feel about compared to just in the trunk?
We actually really don't like weight on the rear end housing. There's a lot of people that will disagree with that thought. We build every component as light as we possibly can. But what Brad was talking about earlier is just when you add weight to the housing, that's an easy way to jump different classes when you have a class minimum. But like Charlie, we do not run any weight on the housing. It's all, if we do have weight bolted to it, we bolt it as far back. You'll notice that Charlie has a factory rear bumper on him. That definitely for purpose, that thing's heavy. So yeah, you're always better to bolt weight farther back. But yeah, like I said, there's people that would disagree with that thought, but that's how we choose to get one down the racetrack.
Yep.
I told him you were peeing.
Thanks.
Let's see. We got, let's do this. Awesome Motivational Monday. Thank you. Let's make this the last one, guys. It's been going on about 2 hours, and these guys got
We've been answering
families.
questions that long. Man, we should charge for this,
Cats.
Brad.
I feel like we've just been hanging out with Josh for 2
Yeah,
hours.
yeah. Yeah, I could
Talking race cars.
I think he was taking notes actually. Like I saw a couple of times he was writing some stuff down.
There you go.
I'm a note-taking fool.
That's awesome.
You know what? So I write stuff down all the time, all day, and then I have these, and I have a box actually of these. And my filing system is one day I'll have to go through, but there's racing stuff in there. There's inspirational stuff. There's whatever. I am a note-taking fool. I'm old school.
That's awesome.
So let's make this the last question so these guys can go home. What would you change instant center-wise going from a slick to a no prep to a radial on no prep?
The radial, you're going to be able to separate it a lot more to keep the tires stuck. So I personally don't care for the radial on the no prep stuff. There's people doing it, but if you're racing a class where you have to run a radial, that's one thing. But yeah, I mean, the radial, you have to keep it stuck. So, you got to turn the car down to where it takes the hit and stays stuck. Like I know personally, I've tuned some radial cars on no prep, and like if you can go 120 anything 60 foot, you're doing well. Whereas us and some other nitrous cars, especially on a slicker, going 110s, you're never going to be able to go 110s on the radial on no prep. Well, I shouldn't say never, but
Yeah.
I haven't seen anybody doing it. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not possible, but yeah, definitely on the radial, you're going to be able to separate it more to try to drive the tire into the ground, and you're not going to have to worry about crushing the tire as much, just because the radial naturally has a much stiffer sidewall.
Hey, I wish you could figure out how to go 110s on a radial. We wouldn't have to buy tires as near as much. Jeez,
I know. Buying slicks every race sucks, but they're fast.
Yeah.
I mean, the
tires every race. It's a good time.
Especially now that they doubled in price.
Yeah. But if you go there, you drive all the way there, you don't drive there to suck. So
yeah, exactly.
And I think a set of tires cost us some money last year. So
yeah. When you lose a race in the semifinals or finals because the sidewalls and your slicks are starting to go away and the car's 60 foot and slower every round, that's really aggravating.
Kicking old nuts.
Yeah. And you're like, I should have just bought the tires.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. And that is a good thing. If you guys came in later, you missed anything, or you had to work tonight and you already know the hack is it's always up. So you can always watch it from now until whenever.
Until YouTube dies.
Yeah. Which I think YouTube will outlast us at this rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad is 80, but he's watching YouTube now. So yeah,
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I appreciate you guys coming on, man. I appreciate everything you guys do. You guys do a lot of great stuff in the racing community, the cars you work on, and your genuine sincerity and love for the people you come across in racing. I think, like you were talking about the light or the thermostat earlier, but I really believe, I know for a fact in my life, and listen, I text Jason all the time and just like, listen, man, don't forget I love you and I'm grateful for you, because those guys are awesome. Jay, Brad and I are starting to get a little closer now. Brad's kind of hard to get to know for this guy.
He's like Shrek, you know. It's like an onion. You got to be peeling back.
Yeah. Well, I always thought my theory was I used to look like Shrek, and maybe that was intimidating for him.
Yeah.
But now that I'm thinning out, Brad and I are going to be better friends.
Just ask me about race cars. I can talk about race cars all day, every day. Other than that, you won't get me to talk a whole lot. Jason forces me to be on camera.
Well, I'm glad you did, man. I know all these guys appreciate it. So you guys are the light in racing that we need. So kids, keep being awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate it. I know all these guys and gals do, and I love you guys to death. And I don't even know what else to say, man. What else is there to say? You're awesome. And before, let's end on this note. Tell everybody about Cincy Street Nights, your first race. It's coming up 2 months.
That's a good idea. Yeah, so our first Cincy Street Nights, we've partnered with Josh. It's going to be, a World Series of No Prep race. We have, thanks to Edgewater Sports Park, they've made it guaranteed $10,000 to win. It's a 2-day race. So, and it's going to be free entry. So night one, we actually are going to have a little shootout on night one. It'd just be $100 entry or $150, whatever we end up doing. So you have to have a shootout on Friday night, just 100% payback. And then Saturday we'll get up, we'll scrape the racetrack again. And then we'll do our free entry $10,000 to win deal. It's going to be a great time, man. We also have another, Jeff is doing the gangster shootout. I don't want to say that we're copying Jeff, because we tried to have one last year, didn't work out that great. And obviously Jeff knows that we love him, but a couple of weeks after Jeff does the Gangsters Paradise, we're going to do something very similar at Edgewater. So I think that's a great way to host a race. So yeah, Limpy, we love you too, buddy. Man, you are the best. You're the best human Christmas tree there is on the planet. And yeah, you are the authority when it comes to that. So
yep.
That was we should have bought that picture of him. Somebody was selling it with the headlight on. It was at Brown County. That was the first time I ever left off a flashlight. Was the first War in the Woods race we took Charlie Brown to. So that's a really awesome memory for me, the first time we went no prep racing, Limpy was the one flagging it. So that was
I bet
cool.
you Limpy'd sell you pictures of him.
Yeah. yeah, he would. Yeah, and it kind of matches your little backdrop there. You can't have Ricky, okay?
All right, guys. We appreciate you coming on. As always, I appreciate all you guys and gals tuning in. Have a great week. Go do something awesome. And we'll talk to you next Monday.
See you, buddy.
See ya.